Okay. No, I'm not ending it. Hi everyone. Can you guys all hear me? I'm going to set right here. Hi everyone. Can you all hear me? If you do, you can send me a hi. How are you? Thanks for joining in. I kind of joined a little bit early because I just couldn't wait to say hello to you guys. After all, it's Friday, you know. Hi Sam. Hi Anonymous. Okay. Hi. I wish I do speak French, but I don't, unfortunately. So let me see, guys. I am doing well. How's it going for you guys? Oh, thank you for following me on Instagram too. Hi, the only thing that I feel so bad is like, hi, Taryn, right? Yep. That I am really bad at pronouncing names, so I hope you understand me for that. Oh, Scotland. Okay. Because as I always say about my stories, that my story can only represent my life. There are so many different class levels and provinces in North Korea, so I'm sure some people knew what Scotland was, but I had no clue what Scotland was actually. So for me to coming out, I had to learn like 5 years old, learning about different continents, different countries. But anyway, I'm so glad you joined. It's still like few minutes earlier than the time I wanted to go on live. And today, because I think I had a video, if you haven't seen, about crash landing on you. Have you guys seen the video yet? So I did try to give a like general idea of the show to you all, but I still saw there are so many follow-up questions after that video. And today of course we can talk about everything, anything you want to ask. I'm like literally open book. You can ask me anything. And I also wanted to give more answers to Crash Landing on You, because I do think that show had a lot of impact on people somehow. So what's my job? My job is I do a lot of things. I do advise a lot of NGO groups in South Korea, in America, and I'm a mom. And I am a content creator, and I do multiple things. I still do my speaking engagement and try to raise awareness, and also doing this YouTube is part of that. Because of the COVID, I cannot really travel like before and reach more people. So this is a kind of a media for me to still raise awareness. So have you ever been to South Korea? Yes. After North Korea, then China, then Mongolia, then South Korea. I lived in South Korea for 5 years before I came to the US. So maybe I think I can maybe start answering your questions. And what do you guys want to talk about today? Like, do you guys still want to do the Q&A on the crash landing on you, or more like other questions? So yeah, right now I am in Chicago. I lived in New York until last year, but after graduated from school, I came here almost permanently. Let's talk about BTS. So I do like BTS because I don't think they are just like a normal idol group that just looks really cool and handsome. I do think they are giving a lot of hopeful messages to the youth about love yourself. What lacked me, I'm still learning how to love myself, is that in the past I was like always focusing on how to love others, But what I recently understood is that if I don't love myself, you know, if I don't know how to accept my imperfections, all of that, I will not be able to like do the same thing to other people. So in order for me to love others more, I really have to love myself. And it is tough to love yourself sometimes, because because it's me. I know myself a bit more than others knows me. I know the things that I don't do right, the things that I don't like about myself, but that's I think part of life. You accept and also you believe that you can get better. So I love BTS for that reason. How to say crash landing on in Korean? You say it like this way. 사랑의 불시착. Hi, some people from Japan. Have you seen a moment to remember? Oh, moment to remember. Oh, that sounds so familiar. Oh, can you give me a brief story about that movie was? I love the movie Notebook, American movie. Have you visited Minnesota, David? Unfortunately, I don't think I have been visited Minnesota. I really do want to visit more like Central America, but I've been more in the coast, and I'm so happy to be in Chicago because it's closer to Midwest. I've been to some other like Midwestern parts in America, but not Minnesota yet. Will you see North Korea videos? Like what kind of videos, guys, you guys are talking about? Any thoughts on Europe? Okay, the thoughts on Europe. I did wanna like live in UK or like France at some point, and I do wanna still do it once the coronavirus goes away. I think Europe has a very different energy than America because Europe has a lot longer history than America, and their social systems are very interesting. Because for me too, coming from where there was like socialism, but that really gone bad. And when I go to like Northern European countries like Sweden and Denmark, I can see it's very different from there. So that's why I'm so only always open-minded about these things. I don't think there's only one way that is right. And I do think Europe has a lot of things to teach me about political system and culture and history. So yeah, I hope I get to live in Europe some point in my life. South France, I have been to South France. I've been to Nice province, and I didn't get to see the lavender field, but I did get to see some parts of southern France, and it was so beautiful. It was like out of this world because when I was in North Korea, I think like I vaguely heard the word like Europe. It's like we say gurapa in North Korean, and like when you guys like don't have a lot of exposure to Asians, right? For you, Korean, Japanese, Chinese look very similar, almost the same. It's like that. Like people like ask me, so do you speak Japanese? Because I'm like Asian. Like no, they are very different language. It was like me. Like I thought, to me, white people looked all the same. So I didn't have quite difference between like Canadian, English, or American. I used to think they were like almost similar, like one people. And I now I see like they are pretty different. So what do you think on religion? Okay, that's pretty good question. I mean, but the thing is that people say there are a few things you should never talk about. One is politics. Second is religion, and I'm gonna talk about both here. So no wonder why I have so many auntie fans. So many people like trying to like hate me because I keep talking about this stuff. Because I fought for my freedom of speech, so I would just like share my views. Even if I change my mind, I think I have right to say what I believe right now. I do think religion is quite important. It is our human right. The reason why I don't accept North Korean regime is that people literally in North Korea right now get executed to own a Bible or read a Bible or meeting a missionary. So in China, there are a lot of missionaries try to rescue North Korean defectors, and I was one of them. The missionaries came from South Korea, rescued me from that a lifetime that almost feels like a last life that happened to me. It was a very difficult time, and the missionaries rescued me. But what made me initially to think not that great about these missionaries was that when I met them to this pastor, someone in our group lady told him what I did to survive in China, which was being in a chat room. And he told me I was so dirty and I had to repent, and he wasn't sure no matter how much I was repent, I was going to become a pure as like feather that God wants me to be. So emotional, but it was like shocking at 15 years old, like telling me I'm a like forever sinner and dirty, and there was no way for me to be pure again because I've gone through those to survive. So it was really shocking, and then I started feeling shame about my past and being raped all of it. So I went to South Korea. But back then I had to be lying to him like I was a Christian, I was a true believer. But I don't even think I was lied at the time, because when you are so desperate to survive, you can like literally believe anything. You can believe rocks, you can believe water, you can believe air, if that's gonna help you to survive. And if I didn't believe in God at that point, Christianity, these missionaries was not going to save me. Only reason they were going to save me was me becoming a believer. So I did prove me being a believer to them, and they helped me to go to Mongolia, then South Korea later. And I do think there is definitely better way to practice religion. I do think religion is a good thing as long as we practice it in a non-violent, non-judgmental way. I do love those values, moral values. When you don't have belief, you literally can believe in anything. And that's what scares me here in West right now. Because there's no good and bad. There's nothing is said here. So people literally believe in anything, and it becomes anarchy. So I don't go to church often, but I go a few times a year, and I don't care whatever church that is. I just want to go to a place where they talk about compassion and love and forgiveness. And that is to me a religion, to love. What's the meaning of life? When I was younger, meaning of life was really, being fed and having material things. Or when I grew up a bit older, meaning of life was, going to good school and prestige. And after I had a baby, relatively in a young age, it really changed me what I believe in life, why I'm living this life is really love. Love yourself, love your children, love others. Nothing is greater than love, and religion teaches that. So I do really hope my people in North Korea get to experience a religion that we experience here without any persecution from the regime. So yeah, I'm so grateful I can go to church whenever I want to go. Or even I read one of the books that I read this year that really drastically changed me was Siddhartha. It's a fiction. So I'm open to learn any kinds of religion for sure. So can I talk about did you discover question is going so fast. So talking about my mom and my sister, my mom is in South Korea, in outside of Seoul. And my sister, guys, guess what? She is a teacher. She's a elementary teacher. So being a teacher in South Korea is extremely hard. As you guys know, South Korea is like next to Finland, one of the most competitive education system they got. So in order to be a teacher, you gotta really work hard, and I'm so proud of her. She arrived in South Korea at the age of like Korean age 25, and she was like in her mid 20s, but she had to study from the materials that like 7-8 years old like studying like elementary school books. She studied GED, like year middle school and high school. She went to teachers university. It was really good university, and graduated, and now is a teacher. So I'm so proud of her and how much she overcame, and I think she overcame way more than I did. But for her, she decided to not talk about her past. She decided to leave it there. It's sometimes some people say like, oh, it's good to talk about what you went through, but some experiences, like, you literally want to like erase them if there's a way, and that's how hard it is for that. So for some of them, so I fully support her that she doesn't want to talk about what she went through, and just wants to just moving forward and looking for the future. So they're both pretty well. Hi Matt, thanks for saying hello. And I'm trying to see, are there any artists in North Korea such as, so talk about art. So everywhere, like every medium in North Korea is dedicated to glorify the regime. Songs, movies, musical, poetry, books, literature, every single thing exists to glorify the regime and the dear leader. So there is, of course, there are artists, but not their artists is like expressing human feelings or philosophical, but their art is only one purpose of, glorifying the dear leader. So it is sad, like almost like art is dead in North Korea. There is no artistic expression. That's why I was saying, like, when I came out of like North Korea and went South Korea, there was this seminar about teaching me about different jobs that you guys had here, and few of them I remember is wedding planner. In North Korea, there's no such a thing like wedding planner, and also like fashion designer. Like there was no such a thing like fashion designer or model. And so all of these jobs didn't exist because people were not allowed to express those things. So Evelyn, hi. Where did you learn English? I think I talked about it last time. I taught myself, and one of the reasons I also learned English was YouTube. A lot of like courses you want to take have to pay money, but when you go to YouTube, like everything is free. And the other trick I had was I just literally read everything when I came to America, any signs, any ads, and sometimes the words really like funny and people were making fun of me, like don't read that ad. But I was literally read everything I saw in my eyes, and that's like how obsessed I was. And then, so are you going to post a new questions going too fast? Thank you guys. Hi Tommy. Hi. Okay. I need to get better at like holding questions. How do people do this? So many people from India. That's wonderful. How I'm so like hi, dragonflies delicious. Are dragonflies delicious? Well, I would prefer grasshoppers over dragonflies, because dragonflies, you don't eat the wing, you roast their head. And head is okay, but the body parts, it smells a lot like fish kind of feeling, but not like, nice way. And I think grasshoppers, when you roast them, I think they can be tasty. I mean, now, I mean, if someone asks me to eat the grasshopper, I guess I will eat it. It's okay for me, but it's not like the first thing in the morning I'm getting up, like I feel like grasshopper today, you know. But some food I do miss, like, you know, in North Korea, like food were very organic and healthy. So here, you know, I do also have to now watch out how much sugar it got, you know, how much fat, I mean, the processed food is in there. But I still prefer, of course, here because you get choices here. Uh, so I think it's my fourth. What is my hobby? I used to do hot yoga before the coronavirus, and you know, I think for me, it's like when I lose everything overwhelmed, like connecting with my body helps me to stay grounded, and it really makes me like feel much better and calm. So I used to do hot yoga a lot before the corona. I think now the studios are closed, and it's really hard to do hot yoga at home. You know, you can never make it home like over 100 something Fahrenheit. So, and other hobbies that you have is like reading. I like to read a lot, and you know, when I read, like I get to live somebody else's life, and it is such a unique, special experience that, you know, when I don't read, I get to live like Yeonmi's life, one life. But when you read, you can be a president, you can be a peasant, you can be a revolutionary, you can be an artist, like you can be a lover, you can be anything. And I think that's what I love about reading is that I get to live like thousands of different like life, and you know, in it, like in the character, I can like think, what would I do? I mean, I know I'm a nerd. um, do they eat dogs in North Korea, or that's a terrible joke? Okay, I'm so glad you talk about eating dogs, because it's like, because I'm here to responsibly to tell you the truth. I don't have reason to, you know, say the things that doesn't happen. So in North Korea, you get killed for eating cow. So human life is like, there's no concept of human rights. In that situation, how does can government talk about animals' rights, right? It's gonna definitely upset people. So if it was hard for me to understand even animals' rights after North Korea. So for that reason, we don't know what animals' rights is. And I think I gave a TED talk last year about why learning is so important. I mean, there are so many philosophers talk about it, right? You know, humans are inherently know what's right and what's good, what's bad. We are inherently compassionate creatures. And some people say actually we are inherently bad, so we need to teach them to be good. And this is why I'm grateful for my journey, is that I really learned what it means to be a human. I think we can be anything without our precondition of being good or bad. I think in North Korea, when we are born, of course, there's no education on how we should treat others or should treat, you know, animals. So therefore, but not only that, I do think North Koreans love pets. Like, you know, this time Kim Jong-un like announced that all the pets in Pyongyang should be confiscated because, you know, there is not even enough food for the people. You cannot like have a pet that while people dying. And then he announced that, like, you know, pets should go to like those places where they become food. It is absolutely horrifying, but I think in some ways I felt people here in the West, it's not you guys, but way more compassionate to a polar bear, a pet, I mean a puppy or cat than humans' misery. Like in the 90s when I was born, not even eating a dog was something common. Like there are literally a cannibalism in North Korea. People eat people. That's how desperate it is in this 21st century. Like when Americans came to this country and, you know, discovering the West, there was cannibalism. I mean, a lot of human history did have cannibalism, but it just makes no sense in this 21st century people have to do that. And that is happening in North Korea. So the extent of, you know, human misery is like out of our imagination. Right now, the UN came out saying, you know, their population of 60% is like extremely malnourished and they need a treatment. So in that situation, you know, talking about dogs is almost, you know, a luxury, that because we can afford to talk about animals' rights, but North Korean people talking about other than surviving is a luxury. And it might not be like okay for us to hear that they eat dog, but you know, you never know when you're hungry what you're gonna do. So I don't think we should judge anyone unless we have been in their shoes. So let me see other questions. So what big dramas do you have for, is it real that God can be any home in like, do you think Kim Jong-un is there? Go check on my video about Kim Jong-un's, you know, life. Have you been to Disney World? So I have been to Disneyland in California, but I have not been to Disney World yet. Is it open, right? I heard it's like open, but you have the capacity. I do want to like take my son, like, you know, go on a, I heard there's like Disney cruise. So I'm like waiting for that to happen when the COVID goes away. So does North Korea care about the natural environment? So here we go back again. How different life can be. It's so hard to imagine, right? Like, I don't blame people. Like, when I live in New York, it's a completely bubble. When I live in Chicago, it's another bubble. It's you know, we are affected by our environment a lot. You know, I think environment does shape us a lot, and I think we do need to acknowledge that. But like, how do you care about environment while you're not even sure you're gonna be alive tomorrow? And it's not only like, and the regime, they like dig the lands and finding these things and sell to China, and they do like missile tests and cause man-made earthquakes. And then the people nearby in these like test sites of nuclear weapons have babies are like, you know, of course, like, or, you know, genetically modified, and people like they lose teeth at their lungs. I mean, they die like in their 40s. So it's I do another say that like when we can afford to say we care about animals, we care about environment, that means North Korea made it to this world. But right now, North Korea is not in this same earth. It's like almost a different planet. I mean, their location is on this earth, but how the norm is happening there is the law and the common sense doesn't apply to North Korea, because that's how different it is. Like, you know, when I came here, I met so many people talk about, you know, climate change, animals' rights, equality, gender equality, so many different equalities, and so many things. I mean, I was like, of course I will overwhelmed, and it doesn't mean I don't care about it. Like, of course I care about it. I don't think that North Korean people is the only people that are suffering right now. Suffering is everywhere. Even in the rich countries, people suffer, you know, depression, everything. It is definitely, life is hard, but I think what we need to remember is that as we care about animals, as we care about environment, we can make a heart for people who are suffering under the dictatorships because they don't have voice, right? As we can be a voice to animals who cannot speak for themselves, we can also be a voice to humans who doesn't have voice. That's all I wanted in my activism. It's not like I asked people, quit everything that you care about, quit everything, all the world problems, just let's focusing on North Korea. It's not that. Like, you know, as we care about all these things, North Korea can be one of them. And I do personally believe that I think human life matters. It is almost funny that I have to argue to people why human life matters more than puppies, but it is like human life is something holy about it. It is something, there's a dignity about humans, and I do think I'm like human first, definitely person. I do care about humans above all. So how about to be gay in North Korea execution? So so yeah, it is such an interesting. I always talk about like gay or lesbian, right? Or transgender even. So I remember when I came to America, I think second time I went to San Francisco in a conference called the Hackathon. I met a person and then he heard my story, and after my talk he just came out, like hugged me and say like, "Oh darling, don't worry, I'm gay." And I was like, what the heck is this guy talking about? Like, why are you even hugging me? So I went back to my hotel room and I looked it in like Google and like Googled gay. And I was like, oh, that's what it meant. So in North Korea, as I before mentioned here, right, there's no word for liberty, there's no word for human rights, there's no word for animals' rights, and also there's no word for gay. And this is so evil because when you do not make that word, that means when you delete that word, like in 1984 by George Orwell, they talk about the new speak. Why language is so important? Because it controls your thoughts. If you eliminate the word gay, you lose the ability to understand the concept of gay. And that's how our brain gets like controlled and eliminated and becomes less critical thinkers. So of course it was confusing to learn about so many layers of gender. I mean, being at Columbia University in New York, like I meet people like gender fluid, and I was like, what the heck is that? It's still hard for me to understand, but I think it is so wonderful here that we can explore all those sides. But in North Korea, you cannot be gay. And I'm sure there are tons of closet the gays, right? But you can never say you're gay. If you do, I'm sure governments, regime execute them or send to prison camp, but we don't know about it. Just in the news, we don't talk about those kind of people. How can rich countries supply North Korea citizens with food and anything else if the Kim regime prevents it? I don't think if the UN was going to solve North Korea, right, they should have solved this 70 years ago. So that's not what I expect. I do think, but right now we have this advantage of you guys being able to reach North Korean defectors or the NGOs that are working in this field. I don't believe that. I mean, the UN, the food they gave, it did go to North Korea, but regime did not spend those, food on the people who are actually suffering from malnutrition. He kept it and then gave it to his, the most loyal people in Pyongyang who maintained the regime and who maintained our misery. So giving money through like United Nations is not an effective way to help people. In a way, when you do that, you empower the regime. And what we need is empowering North Korean people. There are unfortunately only over 200 North Korean defectors came to America, but there are way more defectors in South Korea, over 30,000 defectors in China. In South Korea, and somewhere between 50,000 to 300,000 North Korean defectors in China right now, hiding, being human trafficked like me. Like, imagine if those missionaries didn't rescue me. I can't even imagine. I might not be even alive. My son would not exist. So you can, help those NGOs that does rescuing the work. And you can help those NGOs getting the information inside North Korea so they can free North Korean people's minds. So I really recommend trying to change from the grassroots level, not from the top down, but I think waking up North Koreans is the first step. So how our I think last time I talked about the NGO that I really care about. It's like it's called NAHU, NAHU. I will share the link. They do rescue work. They do empowering North Korean defectors and educating them, also getting the information inside North Korea. So I do really recommend. And this is like the defector-led organization in South Korea. They are all youth from North Korea. And one of the founder of that organization became the General Assemblyman, became a lawmaker this time in South Korea. His name is Ji Sung-ho. My thoughts on Otto Warmbier. So honestly, before Otto Warmbier went to North Korea, I was one of the critics of going to North Korea as a tourist. So this is like, so I've been to North Korea, right? I live there, and you can't go North Korea. Maybe most likely you're not gonna get harmed as long as you obey your guides, right? But the thing is, what morally unacceptable for me going to North Korea as a tourist is that you almost like go a concentration camp and with your fascination and with your privilege and go and give that money to help the dictator so he can maintain this gulag country. And people are like, one of the organizations that took Otto was like, oh, let's go to places that your mom never allowed you to go. That was their motto. But if your mom says no, you should never do it, because moms are right. I'm a mom. I can't believe that's like their motto. Like, your life is a miracle. I'm not like believing like how God made us, that there's so many possibilities, but when you give a birth, your life is literally a miracle. Why would you gamble with your life like that? And of course, it's not Otto's fault. He did not know anything better. But also, like, yeah, even if your chance you come out safe and healthy, how are you going to answer the question of that morality? Like, would you go to concentration camp during the Nazi Germany? And it's fascinating, isn't it? Everything's controlled. Like, and the other thing is that when you go to North Korea, even as a white or like Western person from China or Japan, whatever your citizenship is, when you go to North Korea, you have to bow in front of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il's statue that looks like a huge monument. It's like, do you really want to bow in front of those mass killers of inhuman history? Like, what does it mean to North Koreans? And when you do that, like when you literally bow in front of those like statue without thinking like, oh, in my mind I don't bow to them, I just have to do it because I want to see North Korea, which is all set up. It's like Truman Show. When you go in there, everything is set up. People dancing and people like coming talk to you and people getting married and ask you, can you take a picture of us? Everything is set up. Like you are going to just some kind of movie set, and then you come out and say like, oh, I have seen North Korea, and giving a wrong information about the country. And like people in North Korea, how the regime uses that footage of you buying in front of the like statue, they usually show us like, look at the Westerners, they admire their leaders, they envy North Koreans to have the great leadership like Kim Jong-il. And whole humanity adores their leaders, so we are so lucky that we are his people. That's like what I literally believed. Like I thought, not including just humans on this earth, every bird, every plant, every creature on this earth admired our dear leader, and he was God, because they were showing these footages. But the thing is that things are not that black and white. I understand there are journalists have to go, and there are people who want to research on things they want to go. It's okay, you can go, but when you go, like I do think it is not like completely something morally acceptable thing. I do think there is some kind of moral issue that I will not go ever a place where I have to bow in front of Hitler. Like that is not gonna I mean, I'm never gonna go somewhere I have to bow in from like Mazatong. That's not gonna happen. Oh, do you guys? Kine doesn't even. So do you think the people spend time in how do you get a chance to visit Haesan, Uju, and did you miss your relatives? Yeah, I mean, I do miss my friends in Haesan, and I wrote about it in my book. I had my first love, and it's of course I miss my relatives, my neighbors, everybody, and it's just it's just so sad. Like it's just I can't believe I might go to like moon or the step space before I go to my hometown again, and that's why I'm keep like fighting no matter what. Can I meet other North Koreans in Chicago? So I know only few North Koreans in Chicago, thankfully, because Chicago is one of the major cities in America. There are quite few unlike other parts of America. But when you meet North Koreans, it's not like I can like meet them. Even myself as a North Korean, I have to be careful because like what North Korean regime did to my relatives that I became public. Most of North Koreans also like me were very fearful of, like coming out for the first time and share their story. And also that in South Korea especially, among those defectors, North Korea do see those like, spies, and they become close to defectors and get like ask them where are you from, what town you're from, like, and then send those information back to North Korea and punish their relatives. So North Koreans, even after escape, they cannot be like, I'm free now, I can be anywhere, I can meet anyone. They still have to be very secretive, and it's such a cautious thing. Like whenever even I have even conversation with them, like, can I ask you where you're from? Like, can I ask you if you have family? Like, it's not like a completely open book, for sure. Okay, let me see. So welcome to, is there elections in North Korea? Yeah, so I think before I go, I can like talk about a few more things that is relative to current time. North Korea do have elections, and believe it or not, but when you have only elections, only one person in the ballot. So what do you call it? Like, do you call that election or do you call it a show? So I call it more like a show, even though it's named as an election. But how is that election if there's only one person you can choose? So like every election time, it's like a national holiday. We have to dress up in our like a hanbok. I mean, in South Korean it's hanbok, but in North Korean it's called 조선 저고리. So we wear 저고리 and go out and we dance and celebrate the day where we are free to elect our dear leader, which is not even free at all, but all whole thing is a show. And if you don't vote, you get punished. Literally, you get punished. So when I came here and I heard like, oh, the youth voting rate is not even 50%. They're like, and like they're talking to me, the both like rate of people. I was so shocked, like why you can vote, you don't vote. And some people like argued with me, not voting is like also a form of like free expression. I respect it. I don't still get the entire argument of that side. I would like to hear someday why not voting is a form of protesting and also expressing yourself. That's such an interesting idea to me. But I do think if I can vote, I am still not citizen yet. I can be citizen in a few months, but after the election though, in here in November, so I cannot vote. But I cannot wait to vote. It is what a privilege it is. Like our ancestors fought for it so hard for women to vote, for not landing on us to vote, like for minority vote. Like it was such a work that they put in for me to have a vote, and I really appreciate that. it's not a political message. I personally, I want to vote because I wasn't able to vote in North Korea. We didn't have option to choose who we want. So this I'm still excited for this election, and hopefully more people are gonna vote this time. We will see what's gonna happen. And then so do North Korean know about Islam? I'm sure the elite in Pyongyang gonna know about it, but I didn't. I did not know. I heard about Buddhists existed because Korea was a Buddhist country in the past, long time ago, but never heard I heard some very bad missionary in my textbook, but I didn't know who Jesus was or God or none of that. In order to save, how do you stop China? I know, guys. For that, I need your help. Chinese communist regime is so almighty powerful right now. They just give money to African countries. They buy everything. It's a scary time to be in, where a country doesn't have a good moral standing rises like this and does whatever it takes to oppress people, like how they took over Hong Kong so sadly. And I think no matter what, how much I get attacked, I think I'm gonna say Hong Kong's people's democracy is being lost because CCP. So I do hope that we stay awake. We saw with Hong Kong, a third of population went on the street, or maybe more, I don't know. It was enough to demand their freedom. This Chinese Communist regime is not going to stop in oppressing others to, maintain their status quo and their communist rule. And it's just not many world leaders are standing up to China. That's sadly. So I think we as a people, we do have to use our voice to stand up for injustice. And not only North Koreans are suffered by Chinese sponsorship of Kim Jong-un, but only so many Muslims in China, so many minority groups sending to concentration camps right now. So it is really, I think, urgent issue to paying attention to, but everything is covered with COVID right now. Even with it's just whole thing just so not okay. When you were in there, when I spoke Chinese word in China, I think so. I think I could get around the saying that I wasn't able to fully, speak the way that people from that Shenyang, that province, Dongbei, East North province. But in that time, I could say actually I'm from Guangdong, the southern part, and they understood oh, that's why you speak with an accent. But I learned Chinese so fast, so I learned I lost it so quickly too. Very learning, 对. And how did you feel when you were flying from Mongolia to South Korea? Yeah, my first time experience to going on an airplane. So in North Korea, we don't get to see airplanes that often. Not many airplanes coming to. I'm sure some go to Pyongyang, but not in Haesan. So if you see helicopter, it is a festival for kids. We just screaming to everybody, there's a helicopter flying. Just seeing that once was just so much joy. And now I find myself I look up the sky, the airplanes go. I was oh, whatever, another airplane. But back then, not even the full airplane, just seeing one helicopter flying was such a fascination. It was looking at maybe spaceship, that kind of feeling. So when I heard I was going to get an airplane from Mongolia to South Korea, I was super excited. But I didn't understand do you board the airplane through a gate? I thought I was gonna feel the air and see the airplane, get on it, but I didn't see that part. So when I went through that gate and went inside and sat on it, I still didn't fully understand it was an airplane at that point. And once it was moving, I was like, oh, this is got out of the airplane. But I had so much motor sickness, and in North Korea we don't like have these cars, so I wasn't used to taking, car or like airplane. But the other thing I remember is that back then I thought I was like such a big shot because I did not know how many people escaped out of North Korea, even as a North Korean. So I thought I was like only one of the few who escaped North Korea and going to South Korea. And going to South Korea was such a heavy crime. I really was afraid, is North Korea shut down this airplane? And when it made it to South Korea, I was like, oh, I can breathe now. They didn't shut it down. Yeah, so it was, yeah. So need to cheer though. Yeah, hope I'm doing well, guys. This was so fun. I know I want to talk about like crash landing on you, but you guys were interested in so many other things. I love answering all these questions. So maybe you can accept maybe 2 or 3 more questions before I go. So last question. Do you think having North Korean refugees in China coming to South Korea would have any impact on North Korea? Yes, I do. If you rescue more defectors, you're gonna get to know more truth, right? North Korea is such a secretive regime. And I don't think also ruling the North Korean elite is very important. Like there are so many, consulates that North Korea has. North Korea has a consulate in Sweden. They have, embassies in China, in Russia, and I think in Germany too. Most of the countries they do have it. So when you lure those elites to come to democracy and, defect the regime, that is such a strong message to the regime, and also bring all those average people like me to come here. And when defectors come to here, most of them do get in touch with their relatives. So let me explain how this happens, because people say, oh, there's no internet, their phones cannot make the international phone calls. How do you speak to North Korean? I speak North Korean, they wonder how do I do it. So this is how we do it. We have brokers in China side, and then we have brokers in North Korea side on the border. So we smuggle the Chinese phone, has the internet, and do you guys know KakaoTalk too? The Korean app. So all those things installed, those things use a Chinese phone. Then we smuggle that phone to North Korea, but when that we are smuggling is literally across the border. So even that phone gets into North Korea, they still get a Chinese signal because they are so close. China cannot completely shut it down. So we call Chinese phone. Then North Korean answers that call. That's how we receive photos. That's how we receive videos, and that's how we talk to them all the time. But when I want to talk to somebody inside North Korea, this is how it happens. We use a Chinese phone, put it on a speakerphone, and we use North Korea's landline phone, and then talk through that way. So we, Chinese phone, we speak to them, and there's somebody inside middle North Korea use landline, but then we gotta use code languages very carefully. We cannot be saying I'm calling from America or South Korea. When we describe money, we talk about candy. How many candy did you receive? They say oh, 2. Then that means how much money they receive. Oh, how many pork did you receive? How many kilograms of rice? All that code language we have to create to talk them so they don't get into trouble. It's almost when you watch 000, those spy movies, when you talk to North Koreans, it's way more spying, real life spying movie than that. And so these defectors, when you escape, they do get in touch with North Korea and their relatives and their friends. And what they do is they send a capital, they make money in South Korea and then send it to Chinese bank. Then Chinese broker get money out from their Chinese ATM. then give the money to North Korean broker, and then broker takes a percentage of and send it to their family member or friends. So many middlemen in between. So the money gets in, but not only that, the information gets in. If your daughter or your husband or your cousin tells you that the democracy and freedom is so much better and capitalism is so much better, they're gonna believe it. It's not like you're like reading in a book or newspaper. Your family member tells you it's so much better here. So that information is changing so much, and that's why also Kim Jong-un is cracking down on the defection. For that reason, he cannot stand when the defectors goes out, like me coming out, speaking out against the regime, and that let the world know that human rights violations going on, and also other defectors calling back their family members and get in touch and try to free their minds. Anything about my father? My father went himself to prison camp, so I saw in my eyes when he came out how he looked like. I saw and my mom also went to a shore camp, so I firsthand saw what it looks like to be in a camp in North Korea. But none of my family members went to concentration camp though. They went to prison camp. There's a big distinction. I will make a video about the different camp, how that is designed in North Korea, because it's so complex. Here in America where we don't have concentration camps, when political prisoner camps, we are not gonna understand it, but there's different camps. But my father's camp, it was a prison camp, so he was able to come out. Last year you heard from your crush in your hometown in North Korea. Well, I expected him to escape, but he did not. If he did, I think he should find me, but he haven't found me. A lot of my friends, not a lot, maybe two, found me back. That I was my best friend, Yuzong. She found me when she came to South Korea, but Chungon hasn't got in touch with me. But last time when I heard about him was like 3-4 years ago. I heard he was also married, and maybe I heard he had child or so, and he's very struggling to live there, but he was doing his best to survive. That's what I heard, and nothing else. Why Kim Jong-un hired the interpreter to talk with Trump if he speaks English? I think based on what I read about Kim Jong-un, his English was not that good, so he had to move a school when he was in Switzerland, in Bern, to a school that's used like a German. So I don't think English is his I don't think he can hold a political, diplomatic, very complicated negotiating nuclear weapons, that kind of conversation. And also Kim Jong-un is a very calculated, logical dictator, unlike Trump. Trump is very, intuitive. He just does things that how he feels. But Kim Jong-un is more planner. They go through so many hours of meetings and prepare what they say, how he talks, how he smiles, when he smiles, when he's not. So because he's like a master manipulator, because of that strict planning, I think that's why I think he avoided talking to him directly and used his interpreter, but who knows, really, that's my guess. So you must have happy memories as an innocent child. What are they? My happy memories, of course, involves me being with my father, mother, sister, me, all of us together, because I was split them very early on. I was about 8 years old. My father sent to prison camp, and then a few years later they took my mom and sent her to also another camp. And I also at some point had to be separate from my sister. I go to my aunt's house and she goes to my uncle's house because it was too much for one family to feed two child, because food is such an important thing. So in my life, I have always experienced separation from my loved ones. And then like when we escaped, I lost my mom first and then found her back, and lost my sister for 7 years. And my father, once I found him, he died right after. So always like separation moments. So when I think when I was the happiest, it's not even I had something nice to even wear or eat. It was just really simply being with them in a one space. I think that was like the happiest moment. You know. Okay, move on to next question. Awareness among the people in North Korea about. So yep, for the last question, let's hit the reunification of North Korea and South Korea. Do you guys ever heard about the group called like Free Joseon? One of the founder was like Adrian Hong. They went to like Spain, North Korean embassy, and like FBI was looking for them. So there was a group called like Free Joseon, and their idea was North Korea be free, independent from China, America, South Korea, and just be a free North Korea. I didn't think that until I experienced South Korea personally. I lived there for 5 years, and I think I talked about in one of my videos how I was made fun of to speak with an accent, and how till this day my mother, my sister get discriminated in their workplace because they are North Korean and they don't get the job opportunities because they are North Korean. And as I said, there are 30,000 North Korean defectors living in South Korea. And a lot of them are happy, especially the ones who are publicly speaking out. But there, it was like that. Like I thought South Korea was great when I was there because I didn't experience like the country like America where I could be myself, where I didn't have to lie about my trafficking experience. So you guys know that like there's so many attacks on me that I lied, right? Like you can ask me anything. I'm such an open book. The reason why I lied, the only part I'm going to talk about today is like the part that I lied. That is the part when I was in South Korea giving that talk at One Young World in 2014. I only talked about my mom's rape. And back then, I didn't have any offer from the West. I had to go back to South Korea, go back to my university life, studying police administration, like criminal justice in a university. And I was trying to going in the law enforcement. I had to go back to South Korea to face my reality being try to hide again being a South Korean because of discrimination. And my dream always was being a mom and having a normal life, because I never had a normal life. But if I said that I was both at 13 and raped for 2 years from 13 to 15, what kind of sane man in North Korea was going to take me as a bride and also introduce me to their father and mother and proudly, this is my wife? And what kind of mother-in-law is that's gonna accept me as a normal person? So in South Korea, even I had to lie about my survivor in China to survive again. And after that speech and I talked about my mom's rape, my mom was getting calls, not saying to her like, you went through so hardship, I'm proud of you. Her friends is not saying that, like, is how on earth your daughter is crazy talking about you rape like international stage like that, and she crazy. Did she get your permission? Did you allow this? They were so upset at her that she allowed me to share her story, share that she was getting raped. That was South Korea that I was living. There's no way for me that I could talk about it. And that is also the reason why most of North Korean defector women themselves saying, yeah, this human trafficking happens, but not me. I was the same thing. Yeah, I heard those stuff happens, but it's not me. I didn't get like trafficked. And until that point, I was saying my mom and my father protect me in China. I didn't say that thing. I was the one who brought them back and protecting them. That is a part I couldn't come together. And when I came to America, understanding that this country doesn't punish the victim, it was so hard to understand. And also, me being who I am, my character doesn't require for me to be a virgin. But in South Korea, it was such an important thing to be a virgin, and being a victim is like your crime that you allow that to happen to you. It doesn't matter how weak I was, like it doesn't matter how like bad as a man was, like I was a criminal. So I don't think I feel sorry that I lied, because it's just like a testament to a lot of rape survivors to go through, to not able to be like honest. And so when people say like you lied, it's like I wrote everything in my book. The people who criticized me like didn't even do the basic research to even read my book. There's not even one article saying my book is a lie. Everything I said, like I was going to write everything honestly in my book. And when they criticize me, they don't even read the book. They don't even bother. It's like, it hurts me, of course. Like I see like people say you lie, but I did my best. I wrote my book, and there's nothing that book came out and saying lying to about it. And I'm happy to discuss everything. That's why whenever you guys like, I have this Q&As, I always like, you can literally ask me anything. You can ask me, did you lie? I can answer the questions. And so, so go back to that question. You guys are so wonderful. This journey doesn't end when you go to South Korea. And you guys are so sweet. Thank you. This is not why I brought it up. So I just personally think South Korea has so much problem to deal with, and not shaming victims and women when there's rape happens, and also embracing other people. We don't have to be like South Korean. Like even look at South Korea, right? They're obsessed to look the same, dress the same, talk the same. They don't accept any diversity. They don't accept anything different. Like different is bad. And I am different. Of course, I am from North Korea. How am I gonna be the same? And I couldn't be there like who I am. So that's why I came here in the West. And yeah, guys, I'm so lost right there. Anyway, I just hope I'm so grateful that you are willing to hear my side of story. And it's such an age where like people believe in anything, like anything is written on internet, we give a credibility and you just believe anything. It's kind of scary time too, but there are people like you guys who care enough to know the truth and spending the 60 minutes with me to hear what someone like me has nothing to offer, anything valuable to hear me out. I am so deeply grateful for this opportunity, and I'm so thankful for all of you taking your time and joined me today and do this session. So thank you for accepting me. That means everything. That's all I want in my life, is to be accepted and to be normal. Thank you guys. I will see you on the next Q&A. This was so much heartwarming and informative too. So I will guys see you next time. Love you guys, and I'm so thankful for you. Thank you. Bye bye. Bye. Bye bye. Thank you.